The story continues from the previous chapter, where Zhu Kuren provides the group with an explanation. It turns out that the flame ranked first on the Heavenly Flames list is none other than the flame of the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor. Tuoshe Ancient Emperor is actually the number 1 ranked flame on the Heavenly Flames list. The Heavenly Flame Plaza fell into complete silence once again. Everyone's expressions were filled with astonishment, clearly struggling to process such an utterly unbelievable revelation. Zhu Kuren, understanding the shock in everyone's hearts, remained silent, simply raising his head to gaze at the enormous stone statue with a complex expression. No one could have imagined that the last Do-Di, Battle Emperor, in the history of the continent of Do-Chi wasn't a human, nor a magical beast, but a flame born from the essence of heaven and earth. In the quiet plaza, someone suddenly gulped hard, and the rest of the crowd slowly began to snap out of their stupor. They exchanged glances, their eyes still filled with disbelief. Brother Zhu Kuren, is what you said true? Even Gu Yuan, known for his calm demeanor, found himself shaken, his composure disrupted as he took a few deep breaths. If we're talking about age, none of you can even compare to my grandchildren. Who on this continent of Do-Chi could know these ancient secrets better than I? Zhu Kuren chuckled. Hearing this, everyone gave a bitter smile. Zhu Kuren had no reason to deceive them, so after the initial shock, they slowly began to accept this hard-to-believe truth. But how is this related to achieving Do-Di? Gu Yuan quickly redirected the conversation to the most crucial matter. Regardless of the origins of the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor, their priority was finding a way to counter the Soul Emperor. There are 2 most valuable things within the Ancient Emperor's cave mansion. One is the imperial-grade primordial pill that the Soul Emperor obtained, and the second, Zhu Kuren paused. His eyes locked onto the towering stone statue before him, and said each word with weight, the Emperor's origin left by the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor. The Emperor's origin? The group was once again shaken, murmuring the words. It can be considered the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor's legacy. This is the most precious treasure within the Ancient Emperor's cave mansion. Compared to it, the imperial-grade primordial pill is somewhat inferior. Zhu Kuren smiled and continued. If we can obtain the Emperor's origin, we can also produce a Do-Di. By then, even if the Soul Emperor uses the imperial pill to break through to the Do-Di level, what can he do? Upon hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up with hope. Just when they thought they had lost all means to resist, a new path had suddenly appeared before them. Where is this Emperor's origin? How can we obtain this legacy power? Gu Yuan's face was also shining with excitement, but as soon as he asked, he realized the potential misunderstanding. He quickly added, Brother Zhu Kuren, please don't misunderstand. If you don't wish to speak of it, none of us will force you. You are the most qualified to claim this legacy. Our only goal is to counter the Soul Clan. We have no intention of greedily pursuing anything more. Gu Yuan understood that if Zhu Kuren's words were true, the Emperor's origin would undoubtedly be an incredibly precious item, something that anyone would covet. He was worried that his previous words might have made Zhu Kuren think he was coveting the Emperor's origin. You don't need to say that. If I could obtain the Emperor's origin, I wouldn't be shy about absorbing it as quickly as possible, Zhu Kuren replied with a bitter smile. The Tuoshe Ancient Emperor's legacy isn't something one can easily obtain. I've spent so much effort during this time, yet I've achieved nothing. Gu Yuan was stunned and hesitated for a moment before asking, Do you know where the Emperor's origin is located? Zhu Kuren walked up to the stone statue and patted it with his hand. It's inside here, but no one can get in. Even if we both attack it with full force, we wouldn't be able to shatter it. Upon hearing this, the group gathered around the ancient emperor's statue. Touching the stone, they found nothing extraordinary. It felt like an ordinary piece of rock, with no special sensations at all. Lei Ying, standing nearby, touched the statue and then suddenly threw a powerful punch at it. However, with a dull thud, Xiao Yan and the others were stunned to see Lei Ying's figure being sent flying across the plaza, skidding several hundred meters before he could stabilize himself, looking rather embarrassed. There's definitely something strange about this. Seeing this, no one doubted anymore. Lei Ying's punch was powerful enough to shatter mountains, yet it didn't leave a single mark on the statue. Instead, It rebounded so forcefully that it sent him flying. This was certainly not normal. This statue is protected by the Emperor's origin. A trace of surprise flashed across Gu Yuan's face. Back when they were in the Ancient Emperor's cave mansion, they hadn't noticed anything special about this statue. Zhu Kuan nodded and said somewhat helplessly, "The Emperor's origin is hidden inside the statue, but we can't break it open to obtain it. There must be a special method." Gu Yuan frowned. "Maybe," Zhu Kuan shook his head, pondering for a moment before adding, "Also, the Emperor's origin isn't something just anyone can absorb. If you're not careful, it could backfire." However, since the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor was a heavenly flame, those who are close to flames might face less rejection. Hearing this, everyone was taken aback. Then, almost simultaneously, they turned their gazes towards Xiao Yan. If anyone here was most familiar and attuned to heavenly flames, it was undoubtedly Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan seems like the best candidate. His pure lotus demon flame has already developed into a flame spirit. If we're talking about success rates, he might have the highest chance. Gu Yuan nodded in agreement. Realizing that the conversation had suddenly shifted to him, Xiao Yan was momentarily stunned before he smiled wryly. "I think it would be better if we first figure out how to extract the Emperor's origin from the statue before discussing who should absorb it." Hearing this, the group chuckled but then fell into deep thought, trying to devise a feasible plan. However, after a long while, no one could come up with a good idea. To obtain the Emperor's origin, they would first need to break the statue. But with the statue being protected by the Emperor's origin, even Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan were at a loss. This created a seemingly unsolvable dilemma. Xiao Yan also had a pensive look on his face, but he couldn't think of any solution. Just as he was about to give up, a small pink flame suddenly flickered on his shoulder, and Little Yi appeared. This time, however, Little Yi seemed a bit different. His small face was constantly changing as he stared at the statue, his emotions flickering in a way that was unlike his usual self. Seeing Little Yi's expression, Xiao Yan was slightly surprised. After learning about the identity of the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor, he understood that the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor must have once devoured the pure lotus demon flame, leading to a deep-seated grudge between the two. "I can open the statue," Little Yi suddenly said in a low voice, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Zhu Kuan and Gu Yuan almost immediately appeared beside Xiao Yan, their eyes fixed on Little Yi. "Little Yi, are you okay?" Xiao Yan asked with concern, noticing that Little Yi seemed to be recalling some very old memories. Little Yi nodded, his chubby face once again showing the same smile as before. Seeing this, Xiao Yan finally breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Then give it a try, but don't push yourself if it doesn't work." Little Yi nodded again. He stared at the statue, and his small body slowly began to rise into the air. Under everyone's watchful eyes, he eventually hovered at the position of the statue's heart. As Little Yi ascended, the intense pure lotus demon flame suddenly surged out from his body, finally forming a beam of fire that shot directly at the heart of the statue. As the beam hit, the surface of the colossal statue, towering thousands of meters high, suddenly rippled with strange waves, like circles of ripples spreading outward. Seeing that the statue, which had remained completely unmoved no matter what methods they used, was now undergoing such a transformation, the group's faces lit up with joy. The trembling of the statue grew more and more intense, and eventually, a cracking sound was heard as a stone cavity slowly began to open at the statue's chest. From within the stone cavity, a gentle light suddenly emanated, spreading like a thin veil over the bodies of everyone in the plaza. As this soft light descended upon them, Lei Ying, Yin Jin, and the others suddenly turned pale, their legs buckling as they dropped to their knees. It was as if that thin layer of light carried an immense pressure, forcing them down. Following Lei Ying and the others, even Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan found their bodies slowly bending under the strain. The sound of creaking bones could be heard as their faces flushed red with the effort. Their struggle didn't last long before both of them, exhausted, fell to their knees with a thud. For a moment, Xiao Yan was the only one left standing, looking bewilderedly at the others, who were now significantly shorter than him. He clearly didn't understand why he hadn't been affected by that terrifying pressure. Damn that Tuoshe Ancient Emperor, Zhu Kuan muttered through gritted teeth. His face flushed red, but his body was as immovable as if it were being crushed under a mountain. Gu Yuan gave a bitter smile, realizing that there was no point in struggling anymore. Being suppressed by a Dou Di was not something to be ashamed of. The thin light swept over the plaza before it began to withdraw from the bodies of Gu Yuan and the others. Finally, it converged into a single beam that enveloped Xiao Yan. As the light receded from their bodies, Gu Yuan and the others slowly stood up, startled by what they saw. "You lucky boy. It seems you were indeed the most suitable." Zhu Kuan's expression was complicated. He had been trapped for thousands of years because he coveted the emperor's origin. Yet now, that very power seemed to have chosen Xiao Yan. "Xiao Yan, it looks like we'll have to rely on you." Xiao Yan stared at the pillar of light surrounding him, his face filled with confusion. For some reason, he faintly felt a peculiar resonance within his Dou Qi, as if it was encountering something of the same origin. "It's the heavenly flame Dou Qi?" After a moment of reflection, Xiao Yan's eyes flashed with understanding. His Dou Qi had been refined through the flame mantra, which had devoured and absorbed numerous heavenly flames. This nature was somewhat similar to that of the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor, who was, after all, a heavenly flame himself. Feeling such a connection wasn't entirely unbelievable. "Xiao Yan, it seems the Ancient Emperor's legacy has chosen you," Gu Yuan said as he watched the pillar of light enveloping Xiao Yan. He couldn't help but feel a sense of melancholy. Even he couldn't remain indifferent in the face of the Ancient Emperor's legacy, as he had been pursuing this level of power for 1,000 years. However, he also knew that this wasn't something that could be forced. The Ancient Emperor's legacy would choose its inheritor, and it was clear that they had been excluded during the light selection process. Moreover, since Xiao Yan was his son-in-law, if he could become a Dou Di, Gu Yuan wouldn't find it hard to accept. Hearing this, the others' faces also showed a mix of envy and congratulations. Although there was envy in their words, there was more joy. Regardless of who was chosen by the Ancient Emperor's legacy, they now had a chance to contend with the Soul Emperor. "Ah, fate truly works in mysterious ways," Zhu Kuan sighed before saying. "Since the Ancient Emperor's legacy has chosen you, you should accept it. As long as you can reach the Dou Di level before the Soul Emperor, this calamity can be averted." After a brief hesitation, Xiao Yan nodded silently. He was well aware of the current situation. If the Soul Emperor succeeded in completing the final step with the Imperial-grade primordial pill, the Allied forces would face the most brutal retaliation. Given the Soul clan's ruthless nature, they wouldn't hesitate to exterminate entire clans. "Rest assured, everyone, Xiao Yan will give it his all." Xiao Yan cupped his fists toward the group and spoke with a resolute tone. "Hee, as for the Soul Clan and the Soul Emperor, we will do our best to hold them off. Hopefully, we can endure until you break through," Yan Jin said with a smile. "I plan to take this plaza into the heavenly tomb. There, I might have more time," Xiao Yan said after a moment of contemplation, his gaze sweeping over the surroundings. "The heavenly tomb. Huh. Yes, that's feasible. Time flows slower there than in the outside world, so it should buy you some extra time." Gu Yuan nodded in agreement. "There's no time to waste. Let's act now." Xiao Yan, known for his decisive actions, immediately waved his sleeve. A massive spatial rift appeared in the sky, extending outward and swallowing the plaza and the statue within it in one gulp. "Uncle Gu, if the coalition forces are defeated and can no longer hold out, crush this jade piece, and I will immediately emerge." Xiao Yan flicked his fingers, sending a piece of soul jade flying toward Gu Yuan. Catching the soul jade, Gu Yuan nodded. Such a scenario was not out of the question. "I'll inform Sun Er and the others about the situation." Gu Yuan carefully stored the jade piece, then looked intently at Xiao Yan, speaking softly, "Everything depends on you now." Lei Ying and the others also assumed a solemn expression, bowing deeply to Xiao Yan. If Xiao Yan succeeded, the situation could be turned around. But if he failed, none of them would escape the path of destruction. Seeing the solemn faces of those around him, Xiao Yan let out a deep breath. He truly was a man of ill fate. Just after rescuing his father, he found another burden as heavy as a mountain placed on his shoulders. However, this time, he couldn't afford to fail. Silently returning the bow to everyone, Xiao Yan then lifted his head, his gaze fixed on the massive, glowing cauldron high in the sky. At the center of that cauldron, a sea of blood churned, and faintly, a figure seemed to be sitting cross-legged within it. Soul Emperor, let's see who will reach that point first. Xiao Yan locked his eyes on the blood sea before swiftly turning around. In one step, he entered the slowly closing spatial rift. In an instant, both his figure and the rift disappeared. As Gu Yuan and the others watched Xiao Yan's figure vanish, they couldn't help but slowly clench their fists. The coming days would be the true test of their abilities. Let's hope we can hold out until Xiao Yan emerges. Gu Yuan murmured to himself before quickly descending back into the main hall. The others followed suit, and soon, one order after another was issued in an orderly fashion. The massive coalition forces began to move once more. Far away on the distant horizon, a sea of blood stretched out, filling the air with a thick stench. The blood sea was brimming with intense energy. At the center of the blood sea floated a blood lotus, upon which a figure with disheveled hair sat cross-legged. Boundless energy continually gathered from both the blood sea and the heavens, all of it pouring into his body. Yet, despite the seemingly endless influx of energy, enough to make even a Do Shang explode, the figure's body was like a bottomless pit, absorbing it all without showing any signs of overflow. On the blood lotus, the figure with closed eyes suddenly opened them, as if sensing something. His eyes were filled with the same blood-red hue as the sea of blood, sending chills down anyone's spine. This disturbance. Soul Emperor's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Just a moment ago, he felt a faint sense of unease. However, when he tried to focus on it, the feeling had already dissipated. A mere illusion? Soul Emperor murmured to himself. The great formation enveloping the entire central plains exerted significant pressure on him, even though he had begun merging with the imperial-grade primordial pill. If it weren't for the Soul Clan's collective effort to maintain it, the formation might have already collapsed. Under such concentrated effort, he couldn't afford to divert much attention to minor disturbances in the central plains. As the Soul Emperor muttered to himself, the space behind him suddenly rippled, and a figure shrouded in black flames emerged. It was the void-swallowing flame. How is the clan? The Soul Emperor asked without turning around, his voice indifferent. We've already sacrificed over 1 million clansmen to the blood pool, but it's still not enough to sustain the formation, Void-Swallowing Flame reported, his eyes flickering with light as he looked at the figure before him. Originally, he and the Soul Emperor were equals, but since the Soul Emperor acquired the imperial-grade primordial pill, their relationship had clearly shifted. However, there was little he could do about it, so he had to continue enduring. Throw all the captives from the Ling clan, Shi clan, and Yao clan into the blood pool. If that's still not enough, use our own clansmen. I need sufficient energy to complete the final step of the pill formation, the Soul Emperor said coldly. Even our own clansmen? Void-Swallowing Flame was taken aback. There will be significant opposition from the elders. Those who oppose, you know how to handle them, the Soul Emperor replied with a faint smile. The blood lotus rotated as his blood-red eyes fixed on Void-Swallowing Flame, and he said softly, "You should understand that to succeed in reaching that level, I will stop at nothing. Remember, at all costs. If I fail, the Soul Clan will be destroyed, and you won't escape either." Void-Swallowing Flame's eyes flickered with black flames, but he eventually nodded. "Rest assured, once I ascend to that level, I will do everything in my power to help you achieve a breakthrough as well," the Soul Emperor said with a slight smile. "But until then, you need to take care of everything properly." "I understand. Everything will be done as you say," Void-Swallowing Flame nodded, and with that, his figure vanished from the blood sea. As the Soul Emperor watched Void-Swallowing Flame disappear, a satisfied smile appeared on his face, a faintly sinister light flickering in his eyes. It was because of Void-Swallowing Flame that the Soul Clan had survived until now. To the entire Soul Clan, his existence was of utmost importance. Many of the elders even regarded Void-Swallowing Flame as the most crucial figure in the clan. After all, as long as he existed, the Soul Clan wouldn't decline due to bloodline issues. In some ways, some clan members might even consider Void-Swallowing Flame more important than the Soul Emperor himself. The Soul Emperor was naturally aware of this, but he had never commented on it. He knew that in the past, the Soul Clan indeed needed to rely on Void-Swallowing Flame. However, in the future, that reliance might vanish. When that time came, Void-Swallowing Flame would no longer have any value. If I become a Do-D, I'll need to refine a worthy life flame. The Soul Emperor chuckled softly, his blood-red eyes filled with a chilling coldness. The blood lotus rotated again, and he slowly closed his eyes, continuing to madly absorb the vast energy forcibly drawn from the central plains. As the Soul Emperor turned away, a tiny black spark quietly flickered on the surface of the blood sea. A small black flame silently extinguished in the blood sea. This scene occurred in less than a breath's time, and the vast energy within the blood sea concealed it so well that even the Soul Emperor didn't notice. In the Soul Realm, Void-Swallowing Flame emerged from the spatial rift, his expression cold as he gazed down at the vast blood pool that spanned tens of thousands of meters below. Around the blood pool, countless figures were being thrown into it, their horrific screams echoing through the heavens. Void-Swallowing Flame watched this scene indifferently, but suddenly, a black flame flickered at his fingertip. His body stiffened slightly, and his fists slowly clenched as a chilling light flashed through his eyes. A massive plaza hovered in the sky, with an enormous stone statue towering over the center. A faint pressure emanated from the statue, enveloping the entire heavenly tomb, instilling a deep-seated fear in the many souls residing within. Xiao Yan stood on the plaza, his gaze fixed on the gigantic Ancient Emperor statue before him. Taking a deep breath, he respectfully bowed to the statue, then slowly ascended into the air, stopping at the stone cavity in the statue's chest. The surface of the stone cavity was covered in a faint, ripple-like glow. These lights appeared weak, but Xiao Yan did not dare to underestimate them. After all, these seemingly fragile lights had effortlessly crushed even powerful beings like Gu Yuan and Zhu Kuan. At this moment, Little E also appeared, emerging from Xiao Yan's shoulder. The pure lotus demon flame surged out, fully enveloping Little Yi's body. Success or failure depends on this moment, Xiao Yan murmured, his expression resolute. With that, he took a step forward, directly entering the stone cavity. As Xiao Yan passed through the thin glow, he clearly felt a probing sensation sweeping across his body. Under this examination, everything within him, even his soul, became completely exposed. It was as though all his secrets were laid bare. Fortunately, despite the thorough inspection, the light showed no sign of rejecting Xiao Yan. At the same time, Xiao Yan's vision blurred, and a wave of dizziness hit him. This dizziness lasted only a few breaths. When Xiao Yan regained his senses, he was startled to find that his surroundings had undergone a drastic transformation. Brilliant flames filled his vision. Undoubtedly, he was now in a sea of fire. The flames were vibrant, a dazzling array of colors that left one awestruck. A sea of heavenly flames. Xiao Yan crouched down and gently grasped a wisp of purple flame in his hand. A familiar sensation washed over him, and he couldn't help but murmur, 3,000 burning flame. Xiao Yan began to walk through this ocean composed of various heavenly flames. As he moved, the flames gathered around him, seeming quite intimate and welcoming. It seems your constitution is quite favored by the heavenly flames. As Xiao Yan walked slowly, a voice, old and tinged with a hint of amusement, suddenly echoed through the sea of fire. Startled by the sudden voice, Xiao Yan quickly looked up. Not far ahead, in a section of the fire sea, the flames gathered and formed a massive flaming bud. The bud slowly bloomed, revealing an elderly figure dressed in dark robes within Xiao Yan's line of sight. The old man was dressed in dark robes, with nothing particularly striking about his appearance. If one were to overlook the brilliantly colored hair on his head, he would seem like an ordinary elder. At this moment, the old man was sitting cross-legged within the flaming bud, his aged face carrying a subtle, inexplicable smile as he gazed at Xiao Yan. This figure was one Xiao Yan had encountered several times before, though those appearances were either illusions or imitations. But now, Xiao Yan knew in his heart that this was the real Tuoshe Ancient Emperor. Perhaps this was only a remnant image or a lingering spirit, but regardless, this was the very person who had been the last Do-Di, Battle Emperor, of legend on the continent of Do-Chi. Junior Xiao Yan pays respect to the esteemed Ancient Emperor. Xiao Yan suppressed the tremor in his heart and respectfully performed a junior's salute to the elder seated within the fiery bud. My cave mansion has been opened, it seems. Tuoshe Ancient Emperor smiled faintly, then waved his hand. A flaming bud rose from the sea of fire before him. Sit. Hearing this, Xiao Yan didn't hesitate. In a flash, he was seated cross-legged on the flaming bud. Now that he was in close proximity to this figure who had only existed in legend, Xiao Yan's heart couldn't help but surge with emotion. As he observed the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor, he noticed something curious. Faint flames were flickering from the vibrant strands of the emperor's long hair. Suddenly, Xiao Yan recalled what Zhu Kuan had said. Tuoshe Ancient Emperor was originally a heavenly flame. After consuming the other 21 heavenly flames from the ranking list, he evolved and, after countless years of secluded cultivation, finally reached the level of Do-Di. A quick glance at the colors in the emperor's hair revealed exactly 21 different hues. Has the continent of Do-Chi seen any new Do-Di since my time? Tuoshe Ancient Emperor asked, his gaze fixed on Xiao Yan, a smile on his face. You are the last Do-Di to have appeared on the continent of Do-Chi. No new Do-Di has emerged since your time. Xiao Yan hesitated briefly before answering. As expected, the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor wasn't surprised by this answer. Instead, he nodded slightly, as if it confirmed his expectations. Do you know the reason for this, senior? I once heard from my ancestors that the current continent of Do-Chi seems to lack a certain unique energy that was present in ancient times. Xiao Yan couldn't suppress his curiosity and asked, Hee, your ancestors were quite perceptive to have noticed that, the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor remarked with a hint of surprise, then smiled. Indeed, the current continent of Do-Chi lacks something crucial. This missing element is key to advancing to the Do-Di level. Without it, no matter how exceptional your talent is, you'll be forever stuck below that heavenly chasm. What is missing? Xiao Yan asked softly, his brows furrowed. Source, the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor said, uttering a word full of profound meaning. Source? Xiao Yan was taken aback. In ancient times, some called this energy source qi. It is a mysterious energy born from heaven and earth itself. Only by absorbing source qi can one successfully break through the barrier to become a Do-Di. The Tuoshe Ancient Emperor explained, nodding. Every dimensional space, at the moment of its creation, produces source qi. However, source qi is non-renewable. In other words, for every bit of source qi consumed, it permanently disappears from the world. Do-Di are beings that transcend the very heavens and earth of this world. The birth of each Do-Di consumes a considerable amount of source qi. This unsustainable depletion inevitably leads to a point where there is no more source qi left. That is why no new Do-Di have been born in the current continent of Do-Chi, because it no longer has any source qi. Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that the fortunes enjoyed by those in ancient times had become the burdens of later generations. The so-called source qi had been completely exhausted by those ancient beings, and the consequences of this depletion were left for their descendants to bear. Senior, the imperial-grade primordial pill you left behind has already fallen into someone else's hands. That person is now slaughtering countless lives, forcibly extracting energy to complete the pill, Xiao Yan said, his smile fading as he returned to the serious matter at hand. Regardless of the past, his current priority was finding a way to break through to the Do-Di level and stopping the Soul Emperor. The imperial-grade primordial pill contains a trace of source qi. If that person manages to complete the final step, it's indeed possible for them to reach the Do-Di level, Tuoshe Ancient Emperor said with a faint smile, then turned his gaze back to Xiao Yan. I understand the reason you've come here. Xiao Yan's expression grew solemn as he clasped his hands together in a respectful gesture. I humbly ask for your assistance, Senior. This matter concerns a great calamity for the continent of Doqi. Calamity or not, it doesn't interest me much. You probably know my nature by now. Tuoshe Ancient Emperor chuckled. But since you've made it here, it's clear that you're the most suitable person to inherit my legacy. If you can complete the inheritance, you too will be able to reach the Do-D level. Thank you for your great kindness, Senior, Xiao Yan said, his voice filled with gratitude. Tuoshe Ancient Emperor smiled and waved his hand. Suddenly, a pink flame flickered out from Xiao Yan's body, transforming into a small flame baby that landed in the Ancient Emperor's hand. It was little E, pure lotus demon flame. It's been a long time, Tuoshe Ancient Emperor said with a gentle laugh as he looked at the small flame figure in his hand. Little Yi's small face was cold and filled with hatred as he stared at Tuoshe Ancient Emperor. However, he remained silent, and a trace of confusion flickered across his face. It seemed that he still couldn't fully recall the events from long ago. The only thing he knew was the complicated mix of resentment and fear he felt toward the person in front of him. It seems you still harbor a grudge against me, Tuoshe Ancient Emperor remarked, unfazed by Little Yi's gaze. He then turned his attention back to Xiao Yan. I sense something familiar within you. If I'm not mistaken, you've been cultivating a technique that allows you to devour heavenly flames, haven't you? Xiao Yan was startled, but quickly realized that nothing could be hidden from the person before him. He silently nodded in acknowledgement. That technique is indeed remarkable. It was through it that I was able to achieve my later accomplishments, Tuoshe Ancient Emperor said with a smile. So, Senior, you are the creator of the flame mantra? Xiao Yan asked, his surprise evident. He hadn't expected that such a profound technique would have been created by the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor. But upon reflection, it made sense. Only someone of his caliber could create such a miraculous technique. You're mistaken. The flame mantra you speak of was not my creation. When I was first forming my consciousness, I happened to come across this technique in a state of confusion. It was this encounter that led to some of my unique qualities. The technique helped me immensely, but as for its original creator, I remain as curious as you, for I have never met them, Tuoshe Ancient Emperor explained with a laugh. Fate is a mysterious thing. If we were to view it from a certain perspective, we might just be considered fellow disciples in some sense, he added. Xiao Yan opened his mouth but remained silent, deeply shaken by the revelation. He hadn't imagined that the flame mantra had such a connection with Tuoshe Ancient Emperor. However, the true question now was, who could have possibly created such a heaven-defying technique? It's been many years since I've spoken with anyone, and I seem to have rambled quite a bit today, Tuoshe Ancient Emperor said, smiling as he flicked his fingers. The endless, brilliant sea of flames began to stir, and finally, a fiery dragon emerged, coiling in the air before condensing into a radiant lotus seed about the size of a fist. The surface of the lotus seed was covered with countless flickering flames. My legacy is contained within this. Whether you can reach the Do-D level depends on your own fate, Tuoshe Ancient Emperor said.